Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good day. 3, 2, 1, action. We'll start off with a little number here. And let's see here. I'm going to try this. Here we go. Thank you, thank you. Please hold the applause, hold the applause, hold them. Now I have my view, I should have it spotlighted for you, but what I do is I keep it spotlighted and I put it in gallery mode so I can try to keep an eye on some of you. And I got to make sure you don't fall asleep on me. Oh, unless you have your screen, your video turned off, then I can't tell. But anyway, so to kind of, before I get started, we had a question about which model was above what Dee Dee asked. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an idea about models in this range. I'm not going to go all over all the models, but there's the LC and then there's the SE. So the quick history of it is in the early 90s, Lowry introduced what was called the L series models. L series models were, they were typically broken up into two groups. The entry level and the intermediate size, and then the high end. And actually, I'm going to correct myself. In the early 90s, there was the N series. So it was NL was the lower and the intermediate, and then the high end was NT. So scratch what I said about L. So the early 90s was the L. It's NL. N is in Nancy, L is in Larry, and then in the high end it was N and T. And that went on to about 1995 or so. And then in the mid-90s, 95, 96, the L series was introduced. And there were many models, but the lower, the entry level and the intermediate models were the LCs, and the higher end models was called the LX. All right? And then after the Ls, in 2001, the S series models came out, and eventually over a several year period, they had the same concept. The lower levels was SE. I would say lower. I would say entry and the intermediate, and the higher models, the elite models, was the SU. All right. So let's go back to the L's and the S. So the LCs was replaced by the SEs, but over the course of time and the generations, as they introduced new models, what they did a great job at was they made sure that there was a lot of similarities in the operations as they added new items as well. So the LC models, and I'm only going to talk about the first 3 or 4 and the first 3 or 4 in the SE models, okay? The kind of the entry level, somewhat intermediate models, you have the, there was an Adventurer, that was a 1 keyboard model. There is the Voyager, that is the LC7. And then there was the, after the Voyager, there was an organ called the Pageant. That is the LC10. There is an LC15 Carnival. There was an organ called the Jamboree, which was the LC20. And there was the LC25 Fiesta, LC35 Director, and then there was an LC50 Century. Now, there's some others in between there I might have missed. I think there's an LC30 Jubilee. They're all very similar in nature. When the SE models were introduced, it was the Conductor, was the SE5. That sort of replaced the LC7 Voyager. They're very similar in nature. The SE10 Regency replaced the LC15 Carnival and the LC10 Pageant. And for all intent, the LC10 and LC15 are very similar in the way they look, as you'll see when I get to it. And then the SE20 Odyssey replaced the LC20 and LC. That's a lot of language there. But what I can do is if you send me an email, Sean, if you can type in my email in the chat, or if you reply to the email that I sent out today, I can give you a chart so you kind of know where your instrument falls. All right? So that's a lot of LCs, SEs, and what have you. But having said all of that, I'm going to teach stuff on those models, and I'll relate them as I go to the best of my ability. So I'll start, for today, I'll kind of start on the Lowry Pageant here. And the Lowry Pageant is the model LC10, which the difference between a Pageant and a Carnival, someone I think said in a Carnival, the Carnival, the main difference is the Carnival has 4 buttons in the middle, presets 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I'll refer to that over here as well. But the basic operation of these models, to me in a class like this, what I like to show off is what's the basic operations that you can utilize, the simple features on the instrument you can utilize making music right away. All right? Some of these features we relate in some of the other classes, so there's a lot of similarities. And don't forget, I got a sign here. It says, due to COVID-19, for your safety, please do not touch. But I wiped them down. This was up front, so we made sure no one was touching. So, one of the neat things about the Lowry models that I mentioned, from even the early 90s to the mid-90s to the SE series, and you're going to see that today, is the layout of the instrument, overall layout of the instrument was very similar, even if they added new features and sounds. But the location of the buttons. So for example, for many years we used to always refer to the rhythm and blues. And it was easy for people to remember because our rhythm and blues is an actual term in music. And rhythm, and so what they did is they put the rhythm styles on as blue buttons. Okay? And you'll notice that as I go across the other models, the rhythms are always in the blue buttons to the left side of the models, and they did that for many, many years. Now, before I go any further, I see a hand raised. Debbie's iPad. Do you have a question?
I just wanted to let you know that that's my organ. I'm home now and I've checked. It's the Lowry Pageant.
Okay. So that's similar to this. So those of you who have a Pageant or Carnival, again, they're very similar. The cabinet was just a slightly, it's very similar cabinet, but they made it just a slightly different. But the panel is identical, and the Carnival has the 4 buttons. So when I'm referring to those 2 models, just kind of keep that in mind. Okay, so the rhythm and blues, all of the models have the rhythms in blues, and they're always to the left, all right? Now, for the LC series, what I'm going to do, and I've got my volume checked here, so I got to make sure, is I'm going to turn it off and then turn it on. I don't know if you're going to get a little noise when I do that, but let's see what happens. Okay, not too bad. And this is the one thing that I want to make sure everybody understands. is all of the LC and SE series models, everything that I represented today in the email, have a button called Rhythm Preset. You know, and they're typically located near the rhythms. Okay? So right here, there's a button called Rhythm Preset. Let's see if I could do this without disconnecting. Over here, there's one called Rhythm Preset. And then when I come over to this model, if you could see it from a distance, but it's in the same general area. Over here, it's in the off to the next to the presets, but it's in that same general area. Okay, we'll come back to that in a moment. Someone said they had I think an Odyssey or Regency. They work very similar as well. Okay, now the significance of that button is, to me, I think back in the early 90s, what one of the big features that took Lowry where it was today was the Rhythm Preset. And what it does, and they've changed it, the title of it in today's world, in the latest models, they call it Style Setup, for those of you who have that. But up until the year 2000 and I want to say 11 and 12 or what have you, they still use the term Rhythm Preset. And that to me is a very important button, okay? Because that to me helps take all of the guesswork out of knowing what buttons to push. Now, for those of you who have the S series models, when you turn on your instrument, or even the A series, I know a few of you have the larger models, you'll notice that when you turn on the instrument, it automatically turns on. Okay? On the LC models, it does not turn on. So if you happen to have a Pageant, a Voyager, Fiesta, Carnival, any of those models, and you're using rhythms to play, I always encourage students, before you do anything, when you turn it on, the organ, press Rhythm Preset. All right? If you don't, when you press a rhythm style that you want to use, if you can see this, you'll notice nothing is changing. Everything stays the same. The tempo may change, but nothing else changes. All right? So for example, I'm going to put on the big band. I'll turn the volume down just a hair. And I'm going to play just a couple notes here. Okay? Now I'm going to put on country. Same thing. Let's put on soft and easy. The tempo changes, the rhythm style changes, but the sounds do not change. That is the beauty of Rhythm Preset, is that when you have Rhythm Preset on, it will set up the organ with an ideal, now keep in mind, key word here is ideal, sound that goes with the style that you're using. So if I put on big band with Rhythm Preset on, it's going to choose a sound that should fit it. It's so forth. So here's big band, same thing now, and listen to the setup. So in that case, it gave me a trombone along with that big band style. Well, that's great. Let's put on the country now that I just did. We got a guitar and a mellow organ in this case. All right. Now let me go to the soft and easy. Piano and organ. Whoops, if I remember how to play the song. And that will apply to all of the styles that you use. Now, sometimes you'll get one that's similar to the other, but I'll just go through a few others here and read it off to you. When I push waltz, it's just a theater organ with sustain. If I put on foxtrot, it's clarinet with an AOC. Gospel, full organ. So as you can see, everything I'm pressing and selecting, it automatically changes the sound. Easy Latin puts on just the vibraphone. So as I progress, these sounds are automatically changing for you. So for those of you who have the Carnival director, someone said director, Carnival, you have what's called presets in the middle, and we'll talk about that in a second. You'll see there's 4 of the presets like that on the Carnival. On the director, I think you have 8, maybe even 10, if I'm not mistaken. All right, we'll get to that in a minute. But over here, there's that rhythm preset button again. So I'm going to press rhythm preset, select one of the styles, and again, the sounds change. So I had big band earlier. I'll try a different one this time. We'll put on a polka. Now polka selects, and I don't know if you could see it there, but it's his accordion, of course, and a little bit of a clarinet and a harmony. Here we go. And if you change your rhythm style, we'll go to Hawaiian, same thing. The sounds are changing. All right, so the similarities in all of the operations are the same. Now, if you happen to have the Conductor, the, let me think if we're thinking Regency, the Odyssey, those models also have a rhythm preset. However, let me move my cords out of the way. See if I can do this without disconnecting. Okay. I'll do it from this angle here. All right. So you can see again, but notice the layout. Now this is the Odyssey. The Odyssey has the rhythm and blues on the left. The Regency, for those of you who have the Regency, rhythm and blues are also on the left. You have the red buttons are considered what's called orchestral. And we'll talk about that. That's a very common setup on all the models. But when I turn on the organ, let me make sure I've got my volume at, okay. So what I'm going to do is turn off the model. Turn it on, and okay, remember the master volume. Now when I turn it on, in this case rhythm preset lit up automatically and it's in yellow, it's on standby. Now why am I telling you this? Because if I'm instructing you to turn it on when you first turn on the instrument, some people may go, okay, I got to press that rhythm preset button. If it's already on, you don't have to do that. So just take a look at your instrument. Turn on the organ and look at the rhythm preset. If it is not lit, press it. If it is lit, leave it. Because the minute I press one of the styles, and I'll put on swing here. I don't know if you could see it from that screen. Let me see. Let me angle this. So, okay, where am I? I'm trying to do this, look at the, okay, so right here, that button, see if you can tell the color change when I press a style. If you could see it, it turned red. It just means it's activated, okay? So same thing applies. You press the rhythm style that you want. Rhythm preset is activated, and again, the sounds change every time I press a different style. What's great about rhythm preset, what people don't realize, it doesn't just choose a right-hand sound that coincides with the rhythm. It was also programmed so that the balance is, again, the key word is ideal, is an ideal balance in relation to the style. So if I have a Broadway, for example, which is what I opened up with, or no, I didn't open up with a Broadway, did I? I did a Charleston. I was testing out the Broadway beforehand. I'll do that one. The Charleston had a bigger sound to it, so you'll notice the sound that I played was also big. But if I put on swing, it says serenade, and here's the setup that I get when I do this. so you could hear the melody there. Let me back up just a little bit. Now watch what happens when I put on a totally different style. Let's say like, we'll put on this soft and easy. Let's see what they give us. So in this case, it gave me piano with some strings. Okay. Now if I go to the Broadway that I mentioned, now Broadway is a big sound. And what you're going to notice is the right-hand sound is also a big sound, and the volumes kind of complement the style so that you can hear both. So that's just a quick overview of using Rhythm Preset as your friend. Now, you can also use Rhythm Preset or not use Rhythm Preset. And the question is when would you not use it? I say, if you want to experiment with some of the sounds on the instrument, when you first turn on the organ, turn it off if it lights up. If it's already off, in that case, you would leave it off, because then what happens is anything you experiment with will stay as long as Rhythm Preset is off. So for example, I'm going to choose, I'll keep it on the big band, and I'll just play, actually, let me do it from scratch. I'm going to turn on the organ. Every organ, by the way, in this series that I mentioned that we're discussing today, when you first turn it on, it always defaults to what Lowry always called the sweet Lowry organ sound, which basically means a traditional theater organ sound. For those of you who have the instrument, what they call flutes, which we won't get into today, the combination comes up to this sound. So it sounds like this. All right. So the minute I select the style, that's because Rhythm Preset is off. That's the sound. Now I can experiment a little bit and just push buttons. A lot of people are afraid to push buttons, by the way. They think they're going to break it. Just remember this. Just out of curiosity, what do you do to a button? Press it. That's why you have buttons. So I always tell people a button is designed to be pressed. So you can't hurt the instrument by pressing buttons. That's what they're there for. Now, you may not always get something you like when you press a button, but sometimes you will get something you like. So remember that. So having said that, what I'm going to do is I've got big band on, and the organ sound that was on, I turned off, and I switched it over to piano. So let me just see what happens. Okay, I like that. Now remember what I said. I'm doing this without Rhythm Preset. Okay? And I go, I kind of like it like that. Now if I leave it like that and Rhythm Preset is off, let me try it with, I haven't done this one yet, ballad. So you can use that setup, and it won't change, and you can use it for all of them however you want it. Sometimes I'll do this. I'll put on strings, just a simple string sound, and do the same thing. And then I'll say, boy, that sounds great. Maybe it will work nicely with my easy Latin. etc., etc., etc. So that's a way to using rhythm preset to your advantage both ways. Now, I mentioned rhythm styles. The Lowry organs, most of the models in this lower end series, I believe all of them that are represented in the today's class and the email, is they all have this button over here called Basic. Okay, and Basic is a is a style that a category of styles originally designed for those that, and you know what, even if you have a little bit of experience with music, this is something that every now and then I'll go back to, and then I'll show you a little trick with this, what you can do with it. But it was designed for those newer students that they're just learning, and they're focusing on their left hand and the right hand, and then they're and at the same time they're going, okay, now we got to keep the beat. And there's all these things happening that we're learning to do. Well, the idea of Basic is that it'll take whatever styles you have on the model, and I'll come over to both of these models over here, and it gives you another rhythm style that is just what it says, Basic. Okay? And in some of the models, and you have to experiment with your instrument, because they're slightly different depending on the one you have, but the concept is the same. And that is, it gives you a rhythm style that's extremely basic. Okay? So here's the big band, and I'll put on rhythm preset. I'm going to let it play for a little bit. You can hear as it's playing. There's some horns in there. There's some sounds. You see there's some things going on in there. If I put on this style, Foxtrot, it's even busier. So there's a lot going on in the background. Now let's go back to the basic big band, and big band. I'm going to push the basic button and watch what happens. It doesn't get any simpler than that as far as rhythm. You end up with a drum, a bass, and typically a one instrument. Sometimes it's piano, sometimes it's organ, that gives you just a nice, easy beat to follow. Here's the Foxtrot, real busy. Now let's put on the basic button. So it's a basic Foxtrot, and you get this. A very light organ, but you notice it's a very simple, easy beat to follow. Etc., etc. So any style that you have should have what they call is a basic version. So, for example, if I go over to, well, let's do country. Now, country is usually pretty simple without the basic button on, but let's listen to it, the normal, with the introduction. Here's some steel guitars in there. And if you notice in the introduction, there was a lot more going on with steel guitars. Now let's do the basic version. All right. With an introduction, here we go. Now, I'm going to look at some of the faces that I see. Did you hear the difference between the two? Yes? All right, and I'm going to assume the rest of you that have your videos off that you're nodding. But you'll notice that it was designed to be very basic, and that's the idea, so that it was easy to follow for a student learning to play. Now, some of you have a variation button. Now, the difference between a variation and a basic is they work the same as far as operation, how to get it to it, but they give you two different types of rhythms. All right, and then I've got a little trick for all of you here. If I forget to say here's the trick, I need you to remember to tell me this, okay? But I got a little trick on how you can take all of your styles and turn them into a basic if you don't know this already. All right, So let's go back to the variation. No pun intended, but basically, the basic button acts as what we call a variation. Here's what it does. In this case here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times 2. There's 12 rhythm categories labeled. So if I push every one of those, I have 12 different styles. On the Pageant in the Carnival, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, the same thing, 12. On the Conductor, don't quote me on this, but I think there's 7 or 8 styles. The Voyager has one less category. I don't remember the exact number. All right. So whatever number you have, whenever you press those, that's the amount of rhythm styles you have. Big band, polka, Hawaiian, etc. When you press the basic button, what's happening is all of those buttons are transforming to 7 others, or in this case 12 others. So you double the amount of styles you have, essentially. So in this case here I have 12, and if I push the basic, I get 12 more styles. In this case, they're very basic. If you have the variation button on your instrument, the variation transforms those 12 buttons into 12 others. So then you get 12. So essentially, if you have a basic and a variation, or the more variations and buttons you have, it takes the amount of styles you have and adds another 12 or 7 or whatever it is that you have on your instrument. All right, so as an example, here is the, okay. Earlier you heard on the Pageant, and over here, actually all of the models that have this, when you first turn it on and you press Foxtrot, you get this kind of rhythm. When you press basic, you get this. Here's with the introduction. And you can tell it's very simple, which is by design. If I put on the variation, again, I'm on the same Foxtrot button. And in this case, it tells me in the screen Charleston. And that's how I opened up, by the way, is I put on Foxtrot variation and I got this. So, and again, that concept works on the SE series as well, obviously, because they were the models that came out after. So the concept worked the same. I'll just do a couple short examples, and I want to open it up for questions. So let me try to choose a different style altogether here. Okay, here's one. Swing category. When I put swing on, that you heard earlier, and rhythm preset, here's the introduction. And then I played a little bit of Moonlight Serenade. And if I put on the basic, now the basics on the SE series are still very basic, but they added just a little bit more accompaniment in the background, but again, it's still basic in nature, easy to follow. Now listen. See, the beat's very easy to follow. They give you a little bit more orchestration in the background, but you can... And then if I put on the variation, it says Harmony-Cats. I wonder if that means the harmonica cats. Listen. Okay, well, I'm going to stop right there for the moment because I've been doing a lot of talking for a while. Does anybody have any questions about anything that I've talked about today? It's a good time to ask. Boy, I'm a good teacher. No questions. Now, some of this stuff, by the way, we've taught in some of the other product feature classes. So some of you, I know you've been on, you notice I'm going to cover these. But what I've noticed is there's a lot of folks that have these styles of instruments that are newer to the hobby that sometimes it's just a good to know where to get a good start. I always say the rhythms is the best way to do it because most people that start the hobby, they're 1 and 2 finger players. They just want to sit and put on a piece of music and play. And the best way to do it is pick a rhythm in blue and then hit a rhythm preset, make sure that's on first, and then you go on. You have a question, Pat? Let me unmute you there. You have to unmute yourself.
I started off on those organs 8 organs ago, and I didn't know those things. So I'm learning something, and I have a friend that has similar organs, and now I can teach him about the variation.
Well, good. I hope you're taking notes because I'm going to give you a pop quiz in a couple days.
I got one first.
Very good. Like I said, I think the starting point on a model like this, if you're newer to it, if you're just getting familiar, is understand the layout of the instrument and some of the key features. Now, I'll mention one more thing, and then I got to tell you that little bit of a trick for you. It's kind of an extra bonus on the rhythm styles. But what I said earlier was you turn on the organ, start off with rhythm preset, and if it's lit, great. If it's not, press it on. Because the minute you select a style, it changes the sounds for you. All right? It's always changing. If you happen to have these buttons in the middle, there's a couple things you need to know about them depending on the series you have. And I'm going to say this for both models so that way there's no confusion. And when you go and you try it out. If you happen to have what's called presets, you'll notice that they say general presets on there. All right? And over here, see if I can back my cords out a little bit. It says the same thing, all right? The general presets, when you turn on the organ, if you start pressing those buttons, you get 8 different sounds. And those 8 sounds, believe it or not, are the same type of sounds that have been on models for many years. So even if I went to a Liberty and you turn it on, you don't press anything whatsoever, and you press one of the presets, the first one you get from the factory is this real nice rich organ tone. Let me put on the easy button since I'm standing up here. Number 2 is a church organ. 3 is they consider it the mighty Wurlitzer type sound. 4, I call them, you won't see it in a book, but I think they were trying to copy the Mantovani String Orchestra. If I can play the chords right, here we go. Woo! 5 is a beautiful chime sound. 6 is a nice little organ sound with a harmony. 7 gives you a vocal ensemble or choir, depending on the model you have. 8 is a piano and strings. Okay? Now, I can use those 8 presets at any time with a style. So if I'm playing soft and easy, and I have my rhythm preset on, here's the setup that it gives me. Actually, I'm going to use the variation because I left it on. It says guitar, so let's see where we sound. try a different preset. Okay, now here's the, make sure you know what model you have so you understand what I'm telling you makes sense. Over here, you have the same general presets. Now what I'm going to do is very quickly play a few of those sounds. Oh, let me turn off the rhythm. Here we go. Oh, looks like someone saved stuff in here. That's another class, by the way. You can save presets in here. So what I'm going to do is reset it to the factory. Whoops, sorry about that. I'll have to teach you that trick someday, by the way. So when I first turn it on, number one, again, here's the organ sound. Church. Mighty Wurlitzer Theater. Strings, etc., etc. You got your beautiful choirs here. And the New Carillon chimes. Okay, so operationally, again, like I told you, those 8 presets, and I know some of you have 10. 9 is like a jazz Lenny D type organ, and 10 is a sound that they model after Glenn Miller's signature sound. So you can use those general presets. Now here's the, for those of you who have the Regency and Odyssey, I think there was someone that had one or both of those models. When you turn on the organ and you hit a rhythm preset, this rhythm preset button will light up in red. If I use these 10 or these 8 buttons, those sounds aren't going to give me those sounds. They're going to change. So if I want to use the general presets, like I did over here, you just have to remember to turn it off. Okay? So I'm going to say that again. If you want to use those 8 general presets with a style, just remember to turn off rhythm preset. Now before you raise your hand and ask why, for those of you who have this, here's why. The rhythm preset on here works slightly different in that when you press rhythm preset, what I told you earlier is if you put on a rhythm, it changes the sound for you, just like all the models do. Okay? What Lowry did on the SE series is they made these 8 buttons. When you have the rhythm preset on, these 8 buttons will give you 8 additional setups for every one of those styles. So if I put on big band and rhythm preset, I get the initial setup like I would on any of the models. And if I go through these 8 buttons, it will give me 8 additional big band setups for that big band. If I do country, rhythm preset, 8 different country. If I want the general presets, I just have to remember to turn that off. Okay? Does anybody have any questions on that before I go on to my line? What I'm going to do is I'll show you the little bonus tip for you here on the rhythms that I mentioned. Any questions on what I just said? Use your raise hand feature. You can unmute yourself. You could just ask. You can do this effect. Okay. So I'm going to say that one more time, and then I'm going to show you my bonus feature that works for everybody. Okay? If you have the style of instrument, and just to make it simple, SE series, SU series, A, anything after S, the minute you put on a rhythm and rhythm preset lights up, it sets it up just like every other model does with rhythm preset. When you use your additional presets here, they will give you 8 additional sounds that will change to this. So as an example, here's big band. I'm not going to do them all, but you can see the sounds changing. I'll do on country. and I'll do the same 6 buttons, and notice the differences in the sound. They change according to the style. So you essentially have 8 and the 1. In this case, if you have 10, you just do the math. But 8 and 0, that's 9 buttons for every one of these. So if you have what we counted earlier, 12 times 3 variations is 42. 42 times 9, you can do the math. Now, and then as a reminder, if you want to use the general presets, because those are nice too, just remember to turn it off when you're selecting it, and then now you have the use of the general presets. Now, here's a little sort of a bonus. It's not a big deal, but it is helpful. I've heard over the years a lot of students tell me that when the basic button, I'm going to go back to the basic, when that feature came out, that was great, especially if you were newer in the hobby. My face is cut off here. Let me do this. Because if you're newer in the hobby and you're learning timing, it was a style of music that was easy to follow. But then what would happen over time is then I would hear students say that had that feature for a while, and I'll ask them, do you use the basic button a lot? And I'm probably not surprised, actually. A majority of people say I don't use the basic as much anymore because they're just that. They're very basic. So a trick that a lot of us teach our students over the years is if you ever want a basic rhythm style, the concept, without making it very basic-y, all you have to do is turn off a button you have on the instrument called Orchestra Plus. That's it. It's one of the easiest tricks. We've taught it for years. In fact, before basic, that's what we used to tell people to do to help them follow the beat. All right? And what I'll do is I'll demonstrate this, give a couple announcements, and I'll close off with a little number for you. So here's an example. And again, this I'm on here, but this works on any model. All right? Any model that has an Orchestra Plus button. All right. So, and this is best to explain it on a rhythm that's busy. Now, here is the big band that comes up with just the original setup, and it's the swing band style. And you know, in the beginning, it's got a little bit of that in the mood introduction in it. Okay, I'm going to turn it down just a hair. But listen, I'm going to turn it back up. Listen to the band. There's a lot going on there. The reason for that is that style is kind of designed with the song in the mood. If you listen to the fills, let me start it again. Listen to it, and I'll use the hand motion to watch. You hear the horns coming in, and then you hear those slide trombones? That's designed because if you play the song in the mood, the horns slide at the right place. Okay? That's great for that. Now, if I want to play a totally different big band song, if you do, those horns may not sound as apparent, but they're still doing the same thing no matter what. Listen. So as I'm doing that, believe it or not, those fills are doing exactly the same thing as before. It just doesn't seem as apparent because I'm playing a totally different melody. But they're doing it all in the same places. And somehow it works. But then there's some people that say, you know, that's a lot going on in the background. And then they revert to the basic button. But the basic button is totally a different style. If all you did was turn off the Orchestra Plus, now let me demonstrate it with the Orchestra Plus. Okay, and now I'm going to take off the Orchestra Plus and do the same thing. Now listen. Very simple. Listen to the background. And this applies to any model you're playing on. Let's come on over here. Let's put on that foxtrot that a lot of people just go, I get tired of that one. Here we go. Same thing, turn off Orchestra Plus. And the ending, same thing with the ending. Any style that you use will do just that. Let me put on the, let's see, the Broadway. It's not as busy, but it's got enough going on. Now with just the Orchestra Plus button off. Now listen to the background. And so that'll work on all of the styles of instruments that I just showed you. So, before I depart, does anybody have any questions about anything I've taught today? We have a raised hand. Dee Dee?
Not so much a question, but a statement.
Okay.
I like classes just because you taught me about the instrument. Usually when you go to the person-to-person class, they're more about doing the music. So you go to the class, you have all these different instruments. You never get a chance with the teacher to talk about your particular instrument. So I appreciate these classes.
Yeah, and we try to give enough variety. So because there's some people that are actually the opposite. They say, I know my organ. I want to set up for the song. That's why we have all of the classes. What we're trying to do is to give you enough. I have some students that Dawn, for example, does a lot of fingering and chords, and they go, I already know that. Well, that's what she's going to teach. I have actually had people say, oh, I love that. I need that so much. Can I be on our class? Everybody's different. I'm a fan of, if you ask me about fingering, I'm the worst person to ask. My answer is every class. I can teach you an hour class in one sentence on fingering. Are you ready? First finger gets there wins. Whatever thing, because if a teacher watched my fingering and they saw me playing, they would go, no, that's not right. That's not. I was always like that as a guitar player as well. When I played the guitar, the pinky is extremely important on some of the things, and I only used it when extremely needed. So every class is designed to do something for the students as you need it. So just kind of keep that in mind. And come to all, learn what you can, come to as many as you want, and, so thank you. Debbie, you had a question?
I just wanted to thank you. It was a very good class. I learned a lot. I have my notes, and I can't wait till work is over so I can go and practice.
Oh, you're at work right now? Uh-oh.
I am. I'm on my lunch hour. I take my lunch hour for your classes. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's a good thing to say because this is going to be posted on YouTube tonight.
Oh, it's all right.
We don't want you-
I'm retired in 2 months anyway, so I'm on the downside.
Oh, okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. Real quickly, just want to let you know that as time goes on and we progress, what you're going to find is I'm going to continue sending the emails for the classes over the next 4 weeks. But what I'm going to do is, let me just see if I can do this here. Okay. Tell me, Sharon, if I did this right. Can you see the web page that I'm on?
Yes.
All right, you see here it says classes and events and variety. Okay. So our website, just so you know, we are putting in all of the classes. If you go on the main page, if you go to view schedule, it opens up this, and we have 3 different calendars right now. One is the variety class, which is easy because the variety class is on Wednesdays and Thursday. And then the product feature class calendar is here. So like today, essentially you could have
Right
clicked
there.
on that link. But on the Wednesday, if you click on this one here, obviously this is the 26th, you can join that class for that day at that time. And because of the way the website works, everything has to be in EST. So you're going to see EST a lot versus Arizona and Florida, because now we also have people that are all around the world. And we've had some people find that being even more confusing because someone may be in central time zone. So we just figure we'll put one time zone that a lot of people are used to, EST or Eastern. And over time, I'm going to send links. It's going to give you the option to join the class either via the website or, so like here, for example, in September, you'll see all of the product feature classes, and it'll tell you the one that's up and coming. So if you scroll through, you may say, well, what's here? And you can do this expand and look, and it'll tell you the models, just like what we've been doing. And I would just encourage you to go and get a feel for it and check it out. And if you accidentally click one of the links and join, it's just going to put you in a waiting room. You can always jump out of it. And just get in the habit of doing that, because over time, as I send out the emails, like I said, the email is going to give you 2 options. Join for the Zoom link or join via the website. And if you click the website link, it'll bring you right to the website and then to join from there. So you'll have 2 options as we slowly convert over. And then what will happen is the emails that I send out will be more about weekly announcements and things like that, or if we have something special going on. But right now what I have to do is I have to send an email out for every single day to everybody. And then some of the stores are starting to do classes. And guess what? I have to do emails for them. So I'm scheduling right now almost 25 emails a week. The other thing that you'll notice on that website, and this is good to get used to as well, let me pull it back up. There's an option here that if you go to locations, so if in Florida, for example, you'll see the stores. If you go to that location, I'll just pick that one for now. Once we have their courses on here, their individual store classes will be on their calendar as well. It's not on here yet, but then you can actually click on it and join as well. So that's the next step. The first step was I wanted to get the company-wide ones that we've been doing on there. And then the next step is I'm going to get the staff, the individual stores, to send that information to the person that's in charge of that. And then inevitably you'll be able to join you'll be able to look on there. And then we can reserve the emails for specialty things and some weekly announcements instead of getting 30 different emails in a week. So, but anyway, we're going to work on this over the next, I'm going to say 4 to 6 weeks. So you'll have it both ways. So with that said, I promised a closing number.
Hey, Robert, I hope you're getting a big raise.
I get a raise every time someone buys something. So either
Oh,
buy
okay.
something or tell a friend to buy something.
Okay.
Tell them to buy. You know what? I have to tell you, if you have not seen our little Discovery 3 beginners model, it is the most amazing little instrument that I've ever seen for a beginner's model. I would just tell as many people as possible, because those things are very affordable, they're very easy to play, and they're very basic, and we can teach anyone to play on that model. But
Okay.
anyway, I'm going to finish up a little number here. Let's see. How about, let me do something a little bit upbeat. I don't usually play gospel much, so I'm going to do a little gospel music. Why, thank you very much. We hope you enjoyed this
Nice
class
time.
today. Spread the word, tell a friend.
Okie
And
dokie.
you know what? It doesn't hurt to even buy one of those beginner's models for a friend too. And if you don't have any friends, that's one way to make one. Anyway, thank you so much. We have some really cool things on the horizon. I'll give you a little sneak peek. We're going to have what's called Member Appreciation Days, and we got a week long of events showing our appreciation for members. So stay tuned in. That's all I can tell you. That's all I'm going to tell you for now. So thank you
Thanks,
so
Rob.
much, and
Thank
keep
you.
playing music. Stay safe, and mwah.
Bye.
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 Bye.